Hi everybody, and welcome to my first masterclass. I'm very excited to share with you today Shop Floor to CEO. So that's a summation of my 28 years in the business of fashion, retailing, luxury brand, turnaround, restructure, and business. And of course, strategy. So today I'm going to be breaking up Shop Floor to CEO into two parts. So part one is going to be the creative part of my career journey, and then part two is going to be my commercial. So those of you who watch the trailer of the master classes will know that I am a hybrid. Those of you that haven't need to do so. So why am I a hybrid? It's because I have this innate understanding of both the commercial and the creative process. 50% of my career when I started was in the creative side, so working on brands, working in the marketing, working on basically range collection, creative direction, brand direction, buying and merchandising was a huge part of my career. So very product led, very much merchant led. And then the latter 50% of my career has been as the CEO of organizations. So very much about P&L management, cost control, operational efficiencies, different business verticals, franchising, joint venture, master negotiations, and very much about driving the operational excellence of a business. So therefore this combined talent brings together a number of different subjects that we're going to talk about as we evolve. But today we're talking about Shop Floor and CEO. Shop Floor to CEO is, like I said, my journey that I'm really proud to share. And I think a lot of my sort of combination of this hybrid is a lot to do with, the way I was brought up and the home that I came from. So I come from a family, well, first of all, it's probably to do with the fact that I'm a Gemini, that I'm definitely sure that's got something to do with it. But also I was raised in a family of architects and engineers and artists. So on one side, we had this really disciplined approach and obviously very organized. And then on the other side, we had the artistic side, which was very much about creativity, expression, this affinity, and this, look and feel. So it's sort of this, household that I was really inspired. And therefore that's definitely also got a lot to do with my career path and how that sort of went from role to role, like I said, journeying into these different elements. So I hope that you enjoy Shop Floor to CEO, and I hope that most importantly it provides you with a lot of learnings. And of course, if you have any questions, you can always contact me on asil@asilathar.com. Happy to answer any of the questions for you. Welcome to part one, my creative journey of Shop Floor to CEO Masterclass. So today, obviously, I'm going to be taking you through my 28 years, which I'm very proud of, and my career, sort of a summation, like I said, of my journey. But most importantly, I wanted to start off by sort of introducing myself and for you to get to know a little bit about my background, just to kind of put things in context, because I think it has a lot to do with my career path and sort of the evolution of my career. So I was brought up in a household where I am originally from Iraq, so I'm half Iraqi, half Indian. Actually, I've got sort of quite a mixture in my background. And so I grew up in a household, my parents left the Middle East in the very early 50s and they went to the US. So I was, raised in UK and then sort of American educated. So a little bit of everything really. So I have my sort of culture and heritage, which is the Middle Eastern part and the Indian part. And then of course I learned the sort of American side, which is very much the education side. And I was raised in the UK, which is currently still my home. So over my sort of career, my greatest inspiration has been my parents. And I sort of mentioned that earlier in my trailer that basically, I grew up in a household of architects and engineers and designers. So my background in the creative side was very much to do with my mother and how she sort of influenced me. And then of course my structure side, my organizational side was very much to do with my father, the engineer, and a lot of that discipline. So I graduated basically high school at the age of 15. Now I'm going to tell you this story because, again, it puts into context, because if you look at my CV, you're going to see that I've done sort of 2 years here, 3 years here, 2 years here. So, you know, it seems like I've actually jumped around, but absolutely not, because I'm always saying, you know, my career for me has always been intentional. I wanted to understand the A to Z of retail, of fashion, of business, everything to do with creating a brand, delivering it to, you know, my customer, my end consumer. So I've always wanted to know. So my journey hasn't been choppy at all. It's actually enabled me to learn everything from the brand creation side, and then of course delivering it commercially. And so bringing me back to the fact that, you know, I was a very ambitious child and very much probably a lot impatient as well, really eager to learn. And because I was in an American educational system, I very quickly learned the fact that if I could take extra credits, study really hard, and do a lot of summer school, that I could skip years and graduate earlier. So that's exactly what I did. So I ended up graduating high school at the age of 15 because I was desperate. I was a lot more mature as a 15-year-old, very mature, and most of my friends were sort of in their 20s. So I really was desperate to get into university. So I joined university at 15, 16, the youngest kid on the block, you know, but very much confident and really sort of feeling that I fit in. I never felt that I didn't fit in. And sort of 2 years into my studying for my bachelor's in interior design, actually is what I graduated in. 2 years into it, I was very much about, this is an American college, so can I do this thing again? Can I study twice as hard and do summer school and do extra credit and graduate university earlier? And sure enough, I did, and I could, and I graduated then university at 19. Again, because I was just desperate to start my own business, really eager and ambitious to get out there. So that's why I'm sort of bringing that up, because it very much links to this, you know, doing 2 years here and 2 years here, because it started way back. Started way back when I was 15 years old and continued throughout my career, because it's very much about this drive and this willingness to constantly sort of learn and feed yourself with knowledge and learn different things and learn new challenges. So that kind of puts that into the frame, because if you then go on to sort of my LinkedIn or look at my background, you'll see, wow, she's done so many. And of course, that again leads me to why I did the whole masterclass, because it is a well-rounded career. So a little bit about, first of all, my inspiration. Like I mentioned, you know, my parents are and will be and continue to be, may they rest in peace, my greatest inspirations of all. My father is the one who taught me, you know, a lot of humility was very important. You know, that's how he led his life, you know, with humility, with his values. He taught us never to compromise on our beliefs. What is right, what is wrong, and never to ever compromise on those, you know, and constantly fight for the right. And also, you know, he led his life, you know, being my example and being charitable and constantly giving, which is very much why I want to leave a legacy and want to share, because that's exactly what my father did throughout all of his life, as he was, you know, learning and achieving and then equally sharing. And he taught us, like I said, the discipline, the organization, being an engineer, you know, we learned a lot from him and how he thought and how he practiced his day-to-day living. And then my mother's side was very much the creative side and the empowerment side. So my mother, you know, may she rest in peace, was an incredible woman. She was always working woman. You know, she took care of the family equally with my father. You know, she was very much empowered from every single aspect. You know, both of them went to the US when they were teenagers, and they started their life and they built it from nothing, really. So mom was very much the creative part. So she taught me a lot about, you know, the appreciation of sort of beauty and art and composition and color. And she was very much an artistic, beautiful person on the inside and out. And she would give me, when I was, you know, maybe around 9 or 10 years old, she'd hand me books on sort of old Hollywood glamour. And so I would sit there and I'd read about the lives of Marilyn Monroe and Ava Gardner and Rita Hayworth and all of these, you know, the Hollywood starlets and how they wore their makeup and how they wore their costumes and their jewelry and their styling. So she taught me, you know, subconsciously a lot about fashion, and she sort of introduced me, and she was very much about interior design, you know, and very particular. And she'd sit there and tell me, you know, don't go and buy mass products, you need to buy investment pieces. And she always took care of her, you know, wardrobe, and she was always so groomed. And so I have sort of, you know, this two sides of my family. And then of course my mother, equally like my father, taught me, you know, my values and ethics, and, you know, how to be true to myself and to others. And she was very open and so direct and so honest. I mean, my mother wore her heart on her sleeve. And so, you know, that combination, I think, has a lot to do with, of course, me as an individual and how I've lived my life, because my values and my ethics and my beliefs are my foundation to everything. They enable me to make my decisions and everything on both my personal life and my business life, and I never compromise. And again, those who know me know that, you know, for me, it's very simple. It's either black or white. And so, you know, that has a lot to do with my upbringing. And then also, I'm sure and I'm certain that has a lot to do with sort of my career progression as well. So when I decided to actually get my first job, you know, the first thing that came to mind, because I was living in London at the time, is where would I go to have the best experience, to learn as much as I possibly can, which had sort of the best reputation. And of course, you know, there was no other than Harrods. It was so famous, synonymous with the world's most exclusive luxury brands. You know, there was only one Harrods, so that made it even more exclusive. And of course, I knew that it would have the best of the best. And it was one place that would have a multiple number of brands. So rather than going to, you know, target a single brand and wanting to learn from them, I thought, where is there that's one place that has all of these brands inside it that I can get to experience? And of course, the world of Harrods sort of was beckoning, and I was like, oh my God, my dream was to work. Really, my dream was to work for this incredible, because it's a brand, it's an institution, and it's so exclusive. And I was like, oh, I desperately wanted to get into Harrods. So there I was, sort of strolled into their recruitment office, and was so daunting because there were hundreds of people there, you know, hundreds of young, ambitious, you know, individuals, all wanting to have, you know, and be selected for this incredible place. And I knew it was not an easy place to get into, of course, and it was grueling, sort of the interview. And regardless of the role, you know, it is a one space and one place, and it only has a limited amount of people. But I desperately wanted to be there. So, you know, armed with no experience because I was very young, but a lot of ambition and a lot of sort of motivation and armfuls of passion, I sort of filled in the application form and sort of put it through, and hoped that they, you know, then I sat there all day. I think I sat for like, I don't know, hours and hours waiting. It was a very different system. Of course, back then there wasn't, you know, you don't have online, everything was sort of hand. And so then I met the recruiters, and then I sold it to them. Man, I sold it to them, and I showed them how desperately I wanted to be part of this institution. I desperately wanted, you know, to be part of Harrods. And so through the different interview processes, et cetera, I landed the job. And I was so excited. And at the time I said to them, you know, obviously I went in for the role of sales associate, so on the shop floor, because I was raw with no experience, and I desperately wanted to know how it was anyway. You know, I wanted to learn on the ground. So I'd asked at the time if there were any positions available in their home furnishings departments. Because obviously I graduated in interior design, and I thought, okay, well, if I join the home furnishings, I get to learn about the brands and the different textures and the materials and the products, and, you know, obviously the best brands under one roof. So I got my first job as a sales associate on the home furnishings floor. And I tell you what, you know, the other thing is I was desperate to have Harrods on my name, because I knew that if I got Harrods on my CV, that it would kickstart my career, because it was such a, you know, reputable organization and a brand in itself. So basically I got my job, and it was sort of £10,000 a year, and I was absolutely chuffed that, you know, from me, from all those other people, you know, managed to land the role. So I was very excited to be part of, you know, Harrods and really wanting to become a Herodian, and that was really important for me.